What do safe streets do?
Save lives!
Safe streets?
Save lives!
Safe streets?
Save lives!
Safe streets?
Save lives!
Yes! Stay in your lane! One last thing, you who done for, you're the Premier of Ontario. You're not the Mayor of Toronto. Stay in your lane!
No, it doesn't have. Trying to find that. Yeah.
Hey people, it is Wednesday, October the 23rd. It is 5:50 in the late afternoon and about 18 degrees Celsius. And I'm here at Queen's Park. It was just a rally ahead of this bike ride / protest against the provincial government. The Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, is looking to pass some legislation that will give the province the power to prevent new bike lanes from being installed if they remove an existing traffic lane, and removing any bike lanes that have already been installed within the last 5 years that had removed a traffic lane. And there are 3 streets in the city in particular that he has said will immediately be on the chopping block, as in their bike lanes will be removed. And that is Yonge Street, Bloor Street, and University Avenue, which have all just recently had new bike infrastructure completed at great expense and time, obviously. University Avenue is just immediately to the south of here, and those bike lanes literally just opened after about a year of construction, costing, I'm sure, a very pretty penny. They're probably some of the best bike lanes in the city, and he's proposing for them now to be removed after all of that work and expense. And it's absolutely ludicrous. So there were several rousing speeches ahead of this ride here that will go around town utilizing various bike lanes. And I think the plan is to end up back here at Queen's Park again after they do a big loop. They're going to be riding along parts of Hoskin Avenue, St. George, Bloor Street, Avenue Road. They're not going to be riding on University Avenue, which is the closest bike lane to where we are right now. But I'm actually going to make my way down there and take a walk along University Avenue so we can take a look at those awesome new bike lanes, which literally just opened. And you'll see how ridiculous it is to have them suddenly be proposed to be removed. It's mind-boggling that this might actually happen. So they're all making their way north here. I'd say there was a good crowd of over 500 people, maybe closer to 1,000 really. I thought maybe they would ride down the University Avenue bike lanes since those ones are on the chopping block, but in any case, I'm going to take a walk down there right now. Hey, hello.
Give that man.
Thank you. I recorded several videos over the last year when they were constructing the new bike lanes. At first I wasn't sure what they were doing. I thought it was just some other sort of street construction. But I think they combined some reconstruction up the street with the installation of the bike lanes. And now that they're there, it seems unfathomable that they'll just be suddenly torn up. I can't think of a more regressive thing.
Oh, wow.
Take the box like out of service.
That hop off during that. Okay.
I think
I was trying to.
most politicians tend to be full of shit, in my opinion, regardless of their political stripes, but every once in a while, something will be especially egregious to me, and I just simply can't believe it. And this is the first time in a long time I've been so angered by something. So there's the house of Doug.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. You have to see it. So
It's all charged up.
the batteries get low, so I'm like, oh, I gotta charge it. Not have a light on the ride. See that, and then I'm going. That's how the corks work.
All right, I'm gonna make my way down to University Avenue.
That's all right. Take a minute.
I made it, ish.
It's been threatening rain for the last hour or so. Luckily, it's held off.
That's awesome and terrifying.
Let's go and take a look at these brand new bike lanes that are already on the chopping block before they've even had a good month or so of use. What a waste of money. And Bloor Street is in a similar situation. The bike lanes there are somewhat similar to the ones here on University, especially in the stretch of Bloor between Avenue Road and Spadina, which also recently just completed a complete overhaul with much improved bike lane infrastructure. I find it bizarre that this can even be permitted. As some of the speakers said, Doug Ford is a premier who seems to think he's the mayor of Toronto. And of course, the mayor, Olivia Chow, is passionately opposed to any of this. She's an avid cyclist. And it seems strange to me that she won't be able to prevent this. This should not be a partisan issue. This should just be an urbanist issue, making things safer for all the citizens of the city. And here's where the new bike lane begins here on University. You can see how wide they are. They're much wider than most bike lanes. I think that's mainly due to the fact that these bike lanes pass through Hospital Row. And these lanes are wide enough to allow ambulances to make use of them if need be. So going back in time, before, University Avenue was once an 8-lane thoroughfare. And now it's a 4-lane thoroughfare still, with a lane of parking, as you can see also. I'm not sure why the parking was even included in this reconstruction. That parking lane could easily be removed. If they really are concerned about the loss of lanes, they could bring this back up to a 6-lane road and keep the bike lanes here as they are. It's a very blustery day. So right now there doesn't seem to be much traffic of either sort. A little light on the vehicles and the cyclists, although we do see some coming down here. I bet you if you did a count, say over an hour's time, you would find that the number of cyclists and the number of vehicles are probably pretty even. That's been done on some other bike lanes around the city. Like, look at how awesome this is. I think this, along with the new Bloor Street bike path and the Wellington Street bike path, are probably the best new bike infrastructure in the city. It's sort of a new template for things going forward, I think, for future bike lanes. And I think Doug Ford seems to think that after this is ripped up, they can just put a bike lane on one of the side streets to replace it. Which I guess is technically possible. But it's still a major waste of money. This bike lane has already been completed, costing millions, I'm sure. And how much will it cost to rip it all up and redo the street? And then to build a new bike lane all over again on a side street. Just incredible waste. And this is the street that people need to be on more than the side streets. It's the most convenient and direct route to get from one part of downtown to another for many people. This is Hospital Row.
Love you.
When I first started hearing about this, I have to admit I kept thinking, oh, that's just a lot of hot air, that's not going to happen. And it kept coming up again and again and again, and now it's actually poised to happen. Saw a lot of the signs and chants were saying, Doug Ford, stay in your lane. I thought that was pretty funny. Stay in your lane as the Premier of Ontario, not as the wannabe Mayor of Toronto, who Torontonians rejected when he did run for mayor. And he's never been able to get over that. His ego won't allow him to. So now that he is Premier, he's decided to overstep his bounds and try and become a pseudo-mayor of Toronto. I think the bike lanes get narrower here now that we're past Hospital Row. And the further south you go, the infrastructure gets a little less elaborate. By the time you're passing through the financial district, it's a pretty basic looking bike lane, I think.
Like,
yeah, there's a bike lane on the other side of the street going north. I don't think it's quite as elaborate as this one. I'm not sure if there were plans to bring it up to a similar standard. Yeah, so here's where it starts to really narrow down. Yeah, Dundas Street. See, Dundas here doesn't even have a bike lane, but there are still a fair number of cyclists. I'm sure they'd feel a lot better if they did have a separated, protected bike lane. In the old core of Toronto, the number of cyclists is no joke. It's a pretty large contingent, and it always was, even well before the days of bike lanes. I think just the whole notion that removing a lane of traffic for a bike lane causes more automobile congestion is flawed. I think a lot of people who do drive and don't quite feel safe enough to ride their bike, but would if they did feel safe, these lanes make them feel much safer and much more likely to leave the car at home and take the bike instead, thus removing a car from the streets and reducing automobile congestion. Especially people who live in the core of the city, where cycling and walking are much more common. So you can see here that the lane is a lot narrower now, but it's still protected by curbs. Yeah, why is this parking lane here? Just get rid of that parking lane. I don't think there should be parking on major city streets in the downtown core. There are a number of large parking structures all around this area. And many of these buildings have underground parking as well. And I think this condo building here, which is over 40 stories high, was built for people who choose not to rely on automobiles, as I don't think it has any on-site parking. A huge building with hundreds of residents, and no parking is included in that building. So those people are obviously well prepared to walk, cycle, or use transit. And more buildings are being constructed in the city that don't include any parking either, because we're in the core of downtown Toronto. You shouldn't have to drive. You shouldn't need to drive. I live downtown and I don't drive. I don't even have a driver's license, actually. I've always been a walker or a transit user or a cyclist. I admit I haven't been cycling much the last several years. I've sort of made walking my go-to way of getting around, or transit. But I still have my bike. Doesn't mean I might not decide to hop back on the bike again. And if I did, having all these bike lanes around town would definitely make it a lot more pleasant. I remember biking around Toronto before many of these bike lanes were constructed, and it was a bit dodgy, I'm not going to lie. I mean, obviously I survived and everything was fine, but there were some hairy moments that wouldn't have taken place if I had some nice protected lanes. It looks like here the lane is just basically a painted line at this point. There's the financial district. And you have construction here for the Ontario Line subway. Now this type of bike lane is the most low effort type, mostly sort of jokingly referred to as sharrows. And at one time, most of the bike lanes downtown were just like that, just painted lines with some arrows. Which are better than nothing, I guess, but oftentimes they actually were in an active lane of traffic also. They weren't really separated from the lane of traffic.
Sounds good?
Steady.
These ones do have their own lane that is not shared with moving traffic though. There's Osgood subway station. Hello. There's Queen Street. Some sunset action, looking quite nice. Everyone's taking photos. See, the bike lane continues on here. And we'll get a quick look at the other side, which is mostly just a painted line with some bollards, I think. I think the Ontario Line construction is sort of kept the bike lanes on this side in their present state. You can see it's actually a two-way bike lane there. But here's just the line painted on the street. So I just wanted to come and check out the rally, take a look at the awesome University Avenue bike lanes. Well, this one is a shared walking and bike lane, since the sidewalk is all blocked off due to construction. But walking on one side, cycling on the other side. The sky looks purple over there. So, I'm going to start to wrap up the walk here at University Avenue and Queen Street. So I hope you enjoyed the rant and a look at what might be gone in the near future at great expense. One of the most regressive, idiotic, stupid, downright moronic things I've heard in a very long time. I'm sure I could say some much more nasty things, but I'll try to hold back. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What do you think about this whole situation? And be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And also make sure you hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of my videos. And if you'd like to support the channel, there are links in the description where you can do so via PayPal, as well as via my merch store. Or you can also support the channel by becoming a channel member, or by sending a super thanks if you prefer, as we're on the grounds of Osgood Hall. And you can find me on Instagram also under KContinuum. So thanks for watching, and thanks to all the channel members. And be sure to keep checking back, because as always, I will continue.